Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a chaotic reality that pretty much every engineering and operations team has faced at some point. You know the drill. A massive production incident, everything grinds to a halt, alerts are absolutely screaming, and everyone is just pointing fingers at this super vague CAPTCHA failure. But here's the real problem. CAPTCHA failed is completely useless as an error message if nobody can actually agree on what exactly failed.
Just picture this. It's a high-pressure incident, a real Tower of Babel situation. Someone from engineering chimes in saying the token failed, or maybe they're asking if the method parameter was correct. Then someone from QA jumps in and thinks the site key is wrong because, hey, the workflow passed the CAPTCHA but failed downstream. Meanwhile, customer support is bringing up the callback, and ops, they're just urgently trying to figure out if polling simply timed out. Literally everyone is furiously talking about the exact same automated workflow, but they're using entirely different, confusing terminology. They are completely talking past each other.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why CAPTCHA failed is an entirely useless error message. Seriously, when your dashboards or logs just spit out CAPTCHA failed, you are flying completely blind. You're taking highly distinct technical errors, like, say, a token expiring, a callback timing out, or a backend rejection because of a low score, and just collapsing them into one giant unhelpful bucket. To find precise root causes, well, you need precise language.
That brings us to the core thesis of this explainer, which we've pulled straight from the CAPTCHA AI developer reference. It goes like this. A CAPTCHA glossary is not just a reference page, it is a reliability tool. Standardizing your terminology isn't just busy work, it's absolutely crucial for debugging, keeping things secure, configuring retries, and setting up monitoring in any automated, scraping, or client-authorized process. It is, literally, the foundation of your operational health.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover standardizing core vocabulary, mapping workflow phases, connecting ownership and precise alerts, common mistakes to avoid, and we'll wrap up with 3 foundational FAQs. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, Standardizing Your Core Vocabulary. We're looking at a 5-step practical checklist here. This logical flow is how we turn a simple, maybe boring list of words into a robust, heavy-hitting incident response protocol. It's all about nailing down the actual words your team uses in server logs and Jira tickets. You standardize, you map them out, you connect them to owners, align your alerts, and then review. But, as you'd guess, it all starts with the words themselves.
So, here are the core terms you really need to nail down. We're talking about standardizing inputs like API key, method, site key, and page URL. Then you've got your action states, right? Things like task ID, polling, token, callback, and token expiry. And of course, metrics like score, proxy, fingerprinting, and report bad. Now, the goal here isn't to force your entire team to memorize a dictionary on day one. No way. The goal is just making common production conversations instantly clearer, so you aren't wasting time debating definitions in the middle of a massive outage.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mapping those terms to workflow phases. You see, a glossary truly transforms into this high-speed debugging tool when you group your vocabulary by the actual workflow timeline. For example, if you have an issue in the submission phase, you should only be looking at terms like API key, site key, method, or page URL. If you're in the solve phase, now you're dealing with polling, OCR, timeouts, or a CAPTCHA_not-ready status. The handoff phase is all about tokens and callbacks, while verification deals with scores and backend acceptance. Categorizing your terms like this, it's like a giant puzzle falling into place. It lets your team locate the exact point of failure so much faster.
All right, Section 3, Ownership and Precise Alerts. This is where we operationalize everything.
Here's the thing. Every single important term in your glossary must suggest an owner. If there's an issue with API key handling, boom, that belongs to engineering or security. Retry rules, that falls on ops and engineering. Score thresholds typically involve your product or platform teams. Support language obviously belongs to customer ops, and workflow acceptance is usually shared across QA and product. When your terminology is clearly mapped to specific owners, vague issues stop bouncing aimlessly between departments when the pressure's on.
So the crucial point is this. Your monitoring dashboards absolutely must match your glossary. If your glossary makes a distinction between a token returned and workflow accepted, well, your monitoring metrics should do the exact same thing. If you're tracking token expiration, callback failures, and backend rejections as totally separate problems, which you should be, your alerts cannot just collapse them all into one generic CAPTCHA failed notification. Remember, precise terms create precise alerts. And to wrap up this framework part, we have to remember that verification systems are constantly changing. New CAPTCHA types, score models, device checks, browser signals, they're always evolving. Because of that, your glossary has to be treated as a living, breathing document. You really should be reviewing and updating your terminology after every major incident, any provider changes, new workflow launches, or complex support escalations.
Next up, Section 4. Let's talk about the common mistakes to avoid. Now that we have the framework in place, let's look at the critical operational mistakes teams make all the time. And I really cannot hit this point hard enough. Do not use CAPTCHA failed as a generic label for every single problem in your system. Please just don't do it. Collapsing distinct errors like failing to return a token versus failing workflow acceptance at the final hurdle into one generic label, it completely destroys your team's ability to debug efficiently.
Let's lay down some foundational technical boundaries here. Do not confuse token return with workflow acceptance. Actually, scratch that. They aren't even just confusing, they are two entirely different phases of the process. Do not expose your API keys or commit them to public repositories. Do not mix up the site key and the page URL when you're configuring your requests. And whatever you do, do not ignore callback failures. A solve token is literally useless if it's never actually injected.
Furthermore, do not treat a CAPTCHA not ready response as a terminal error. It's simply a normal part of the polling phase. Do not retry low-score issues the exact same way you retry polling delays. A low score requires a totally different operational response than a simple timeout. And finally, do not let your support, engineering, ops, and QA teams use entirely different words for the same workflow phase. Get everyone on the exact same page.
Which brings us to our final section, 3 foundational FAQs. To bring this all together, let's rapid fire through 3 common questions. First up, what does token failed actually mean? Well, the honest answer is it depends. It can mean the token expired, maybe it was rejected by the provider, injected into the wrong hidden field, missed a callback function entirely, or maybe the workflow just failed after the CAPTCHA was already accepted. You have to define the exact failure.
Question 2. What terms should every team document first? If you're looking for an essential starter pack, here it is. You need your inputs, API key, method, site key, and page URL. You need your operational states, task ID, polling, token, and callback. And you absolutely need your outcomes, score, token expiry, and workflow acceptance. Nail these down before you do anything else.
And our third question, why does this matter so much for operations? Because unclear terminology leads straight to slow debugging, wrong retry logic, misleading dashboards, terrible support messaging, and totally unclear ownership. And just a quick operational aside here, remember that these automated workflows should only ever be run in owned, client-authorized, or contractually permitted environments. So here is the ultimate takeaway from this explainer. If you remember absolutely nothing else today, remember this. Teams cannot reliably manage what they cannot consistently name. Naming things precisely is the very first step to actually controlling them.
I'm going to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Before your next automated incident wakes you up in the middle of the night, go review just one of your workflows. Do the terms in your code, your operational dashboards, your runbooks, and your support notes actually match? Auditing this right now is exactly how your team moves from blindly guessing CAPTCHA failed to knowing exactly which phase failed. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and hey, happy debugging.